And welcome back to the Midday Show. I am Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina, the not quite but almost Emmy-nominated Midday Show. We have a letter to Governor Wolf from a fifth grader. We have talking about YouTube and its decision to block content. A dog that is stopping the mail from being delivered, literally stopping the mail from being delivered. And then Florida man's at it again. Before we get to any of that, Mark, I honestly don't know how you're going to answer this today. How are you feeling today?
Well, we had connectivity issues yesterday, which is why there was no Midday Show. Now, we're not sure how this one's going to go. And in watching you, you should watch the replay of this. You're like a kung fu movie right now.
Yeah.
Your lips on your screen are not matching the sounds that are coming out.
The good thing is I'm 10 feet away from you.
Well, I can hear you.
Look at me.
Like, it is fun, but when you go watch it, you'll be like, oh yeah, this is Bruce Lee come to life. Now you just need 10 guys circled around you who attack you one at a time very politely so you have a chance to fight them all off.
I would need some help. No,
not if they went one at a time.
Here's where we're going to start today. In a letter to the editor on Penn Live, they released a fifth grader's letter to Governor Wolf. The basis of the letter is the idea that the fifth graders basically telling Governor Wolf that parents are lying. They're signing these releases so their kids don't have to wear masks. And that if you know there's a loophole, you should then fix the loophole. That is the basis of the letter. I mean, as we're talking about it, I might pick out some chunks and read it. But you and I talked about this fascinating aspect of like sometimes when you're younger, things are so simple that it's easier for you to get to the root. Sometimes we're bogged down by all these other things, and we don't sometimes always talk about the main issue or the main topic of conversation.
Right. So, like the kid said in this letter, there's a girl.
Yes. 9 years old. She's a fifth grader.
So she's the smartest fifth grader in the state.
I would imagine.
So she basically said, this is what you're trying to do. You're trying to mandate masks because you think it's safer. But you put this loophole in.
Yes.
And people are exploiting the loophole.
Can I read the first paragraph? Because it goes right with what you're saying. Dear Governor Wolf, I think that you should revise the mask mandate that you made for schools around the state. The reason you should do this is because people have found a loophole in it. The mandate states that you will only be excused from wearing a mask if you have a note from your parent or guardian saying wearing a mask will be likely to cause or worsen any illness. The mandate should state that you need a note from a professional. That is the first paragraph of this letter.
So basically what the kid's saying is you put this in because you thought it was a good idea, but you left this loophole, which people are now exploiting. So either you didn't realize you left this loophole that was going to be exploited, and now that you're realizing it, you should fix it, or you made this mandate and intentionally left a loophole.
Yes.
And if you did that, why did you do that?
Yes.
And even though a 9-year-old said this,
yes,
it's a fair question.
It goes back to the idea again of like, it's so simple and it's very poignant isn't the word, but like it is this idea of a 9-year-old being able to look around her and realize the hypocrisy in a situation. A 9-year-old being able to look and be like, well, there's this loophole, but if you know there's a loophole, why aren't you fixing it? And if you're not fixing it, then did you actually intend for this loophole to be here?
Right. So and it is no matter what side of the argument you're on, we're just pointing out the comedy in what this 9-year-old pointed out. And unfortunately, I think we both believe that everything that's done politically in the back of their mind is like for re-election and for
there's an agenda
future
to all.
So yeah, that's what the 9-year-old doesn't get.
Do you remember ever, like when I was a kid and I would write something or whenever I thought of something, everything it was like, well, why don't they just do this? And a lot of times like there was this idea of like, well, it's more complicated and all this. But now as I get older, I realize like it's not so much that it's more complicated. It's really just the idea of like we had talked about, like the agendas behind everything. Right. Because her point is not complicated.
Right.
It's just everything kind of behind it. So I don't know. As I get older, sometimes when I hear a 9 or a 10-year-old say something, I just always kind of chuckle to myself at the simplicity of it, because like it actually isn't as complicated as we make it to be sometimes.
No. And on other aspects, sometimes the answer is so simple that you miss it.
Yeah.
Because like I give you the Montoursville School Board has been sued by a citizens group because of this mask mandate that they are going along with what the governors and the CDC's demands are, and making kids wear masks in schools, and they're being sued by a private group. And one of the school board members said, well, if we would have overridden it, we would have been sued by another group.
Yeah.
So it's not like we were going to avoid either this group was going to sue us or this group was going to sue us.
Right.
So it's not, because you usually think like a group got sued, so they must have screwed up. He's like, it was going to be one group or the other. So, we had to do what we think is best. So yes, sometimes the simple answer is it misses us. And sometimes it takes a child to point it out, the simplicity of the situation. I would love to hear Wolf's response to it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I would be very interested to see what he would have written back to the letter.
I mean, I think the only response would be, we didn't think parents, we wanted to leave this in for people with legitimate concerns.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't think parents would lie over basically political opposition or whatever. It'd be like when they mandated the seatbelt law. They didn't, if they said, there's people who, if you just had an appendicitis or whatever, like
Sure.
You can bring a note from your mom that says you don't have to wear a seatbelt. But they didn't think people would just come in and say, well, I don't like to wear seatbelts. It's my right not to. And
yeah.
So I guess that's the only good answer the governor could give. But I don't know. Explain it to the 9-year-old. Explain it to me like I'm a 9-year-old. Do you know what movie that's from?
No, what?
Well, it was Philadelphia, but he didn't say it. Did you never see Philadelphia?
I've never seen Philadelphia.
You have never seen Philadelphia?
I have not. I've seen clips from it, but I've never seen the actual movie itself. Nope.
Oh,
Denzel,
man.
right?
Denzel,
Yeah.
When he was in court, he's like, explain this to me like I'm a 5-year-old. Because it was about Tom Hanks was an AIDS patient.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of medical stuff going on.
Yeah.
And Denzel was great. But he kept coming back to that. He's like, just explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old.
I say whenever I'm like, when it comes to like taxes or stuff, like I say it all the time. Like, talk to me like I'm 5. Like, just dumb it down. Talk to me like I'm 5. Do
people just say then shut up and sit down?
Yes, they do. YouTube will block all anti-vaccine content moving beyond its ban on false information about the COVID vaccine to include content that contains misinformation about other approved vaccines. So in the morning yesterday, YouTube came out and said they're blocking all anti-vaccine COVID-19 related videos. In the afternoon, they kind of doubled down on it and said they're actually going to remove and block all anti-vaccine videos that have misinformation, regardless of what the vaccine is for. I am torn on this because I'm not against to stop spreading misinformation. I have grown up in a world where I have been able to find whatever I've wanted to find because of the idea of public information, and then letting myself whittle through what I find valuable and finding, the truth in things. And so there is this aspect of me in the back of my brain that I'm not thrilled about a large platform, whether it's a Twitter or a YouTube or Facebook, whoever it may be, kind of deciding and filtering down for me. And I realize the algorithm does a lot of that for me already based off of what I look at or click at. But there's still this idea that if I really wanted to, I could go and find what I wanted to find. So I'm torn on this one. Like you and I talk a lot about, usually the best topics I find are the ones where we're sitting on the fence and we're trying to. This is one of those for me. I'm not sure how to feel about it.
Because who determines whether it's misinformation or not? Now, some things are fact. If you come out today and say it's Tuesday, that's easy.
Sure.
It's not Tuesday. But it becomes a very slippery slope. And some of them, I'm sure, are obvious. Sure. And if we looked at the multitude of things, some of them, I'm sure, are blatant lies. Some of them are a lie, depending on who you ask. And it's a very, the more I think about society, and especially what my generation grew up with, and yours is a little different because you're younger, but when we saw something, it was, something professionally done, whether TV, newspaper, magazine, whatever, it was, we just knew that it was fact-checked, that it was professional, that there was a professionalism about the preparation and the honesty behind it.
Yeah.
And now, so we are trained that when we see something that looks like a news article, it's someone's fact-checked it.
Yeah.
Now, because that every moron out there can publish something that looks professional, and we all get our news now from the same place, from our own phone. So now, as the reader, we have to be trained to figure out what is right and what is wrong and check the sources of it. And that is where we're lagging. As there's still people that they read something, it looks like a real article, it looks like they put stats up and good, graphics, and they're like, oh my gosh, 98% of the people have herpes. So they believe it because they saw it and it looks right. And that's where society needs to catch up, because we're struggling.
There's two different ways that I was thinking about this, because I wanted to look up YouTube stats and then I ran out of time. I think these platforms are, like, obviously they're massive and they're huge, but I don't think we've reached the point where we actually understand the influence and how much they matter. I think there's still a part of society that they would never imagine more people watch YouTube today than watched cable TV.
Correct.
And we're just getting to the point where that's vehemently not true. And so these platforms have gotten so large, and the way I've always, especially like the last couple of years, but even before that, there is, like I've always said, they're almost like their own countries, like their own nations, like their own states. Like, when they make a decision, a lot of times I'll ask myself, if my country did that, or if my state did that, how would I feel about it? And so anytime a YouTube or a Facebook or a Twitter, and they boot somebody, or they stop a certain information, or they want to get rid of stuff, I always think, like, in the state of Pennsylvania, if all of a sudden they just came out and said, like, you can no longer watch this, or you can no longer read that, or if the United States said you can't, I don't think I'd feel great about it. And so I'm always hesitant when these platforms that have millions of users and millions of followers, I always hesitate for a second when they say they're going to limit something. Because if it wasn't digital, if it was the physical world, I wouldn't be thrilled if they said, like, I'm really big on the whole not banning books and all of that. So I hesitate. I'm worried. That's
because you're not a book banner, you're a book burner.
No.
You just throw them out in the driveway and just light them.
No chance.
No, I do. I mean, but on the other side of it, if you are one of the big wigs at YouTube that actually gets to make decisions, whether you're Facebook or YouTube or whatever, you're so ungodly rich that you're set for life anyway. So to the point, there has to be an aspect where you're like, I get what's right, I get what's fair, but I understand my influence on society, and I don't want to, if it's promoting racism or if it's promoting this, I don't want to have blood on my hands.
Yes. But there has to be me, myself, and you as an individual, we have to have some of the responsibility in that. Like as an individual,
we should.
Yes.
But
it shouldn't just fall onto the platform or onto the state or onto the country. Like, you as an individual at some point have to take responsibility.
And I don't disagree with that in reality, but in practice, when these things they're so influential,
right?
That, as we've joked about before, who's the Jenner, Kylie?
Yeah.
If Kylie Jenner comes on and says something, it has if she could come on and say the world is flat, and it would have there'd be a whole bunch of new people that believe the world is flat because she has that much influence over her people. Yes. So
can I give the example? Because we were actually talking about this the other day. There is a food group on Facebook. I'm going to try to do this there's a food group on Facebook that came out, and an administrator of the group basically condemned a local restaurant.
Yes.
Because of decisions that they had made kind of around the vaccine and around COVID-19. And I said to you, I don't mind that person making the statement. I don't mind the opinion. None of that bothers me. The part where it starts to get trippy is they're the administrator of this local group that has thousands, almost 10,000 followers. And so that post is not coming down.
There's no checks and balances.
There's no checks or balances. There's now just a group with almost 10,000 people in it that just, this is their opinion now of the restaurant.
Right.
And so, like, again, I think the responsibility now comes onto the followers of the group, where you have to be able to judge the validity of the post, and you've got to dive into yourself. So but the point I'm making is, I still think they should be able to post it. I still think they should be able to have the ability to say what they need to say.
I guess, but one of the other aspects is when you go in and you say it's on the responsibility for people to do their own research. For a lot of those 10,000 followers, that's their research. That's the research. That's the extent of it.
That's a good point.
So it's tricky. It is such uncharted waters. And one of the things, to backtrack what you brought up about the number of people that watch YouTube, especially kids.
Yes.
It is unfathomable when I was in high school or when I was in college or before I had kids, to think that because TV was the center point of the household. Uh-huh. And then like the VCR became cool and the DVD player. And all, it is unfathomable back then to think that our kids would never watch TV and would get all their entertainment and information through a different service. And not even just like, oh, it's just a portable TV that folds and it's a laptop. Yeah. It's on a channel. It's on the internet. It's such a different world.
Yeah.
And my generation still would be lost without the television.
Yeah.
These kids, I told you, my daughter's dorm in college, they have a cable. And they don't. Why do they need a TV?
Nothing's plugged into
it.
It's interesting. It's like, I always wondered, like, with the opioid crisis, like, I don't know how much you've ever really read.
No, I know.
It's funny because I always wondered, I was like, I don't know where this is advertised or nothing, because like I'll go through my day, like for the last 5 years, I've gone through my day and I never saw an advertisement for any of the opioids that became issue ever. I never saw it on a streaming service, everything else. But what's funny is like I would go home and I would watch the news with my parents, or I would watch a game on their cable, and there's the commercials for it. And it dawns on me, like, that's where it is. So there's this whole world that just, depending on, are you watching YouTube? Are you watching cable? Are you reading this? Are you reading that? Are you going to this site? There are parts of society that you just miss because you're just not ingrained in that part of it. I think YouTube may be one of the most dominant ones. And so, like, does that mean there's going to be, like, more money, more problems? Like, does that mean there's certainly going to be more problems the more YouTube grows? Like, the bigger YouTube gets, are there certainly going to be more problems? Absolutely. But what's weird is, like, when you're on YouTube, you are, in a weird way, you have to almost seek it out on YouTube. Like, you're not getting necessarily just jammed with the commercials of what you are supposed to get from these advertising companies. So I guess I'm still sitting on the fence. I don't really know where to go with it.
Do you have 99 problems?
I always have 99 problems.
Okay.
Sometimes I have 100. It depends.
What's that extra one?
Honestly, right now it's eating. I am starving. Let's go.
I'm good.
Let's go to this. This is kind of a cute story.
You know what makes it even better then? What? That you just watched me eat.
Yeah, that didn't help at all. So this one as well on Penn Live. This was this was 2 days ago because we couldn't come on yesterday. There is a dog that is chasing the mailman away. In this neighborhood in Pennsylvania, they have unable to get their mail for almost a month now. Tyler Avenue in Export, PA. I believe Westmoreland County, I think is what we said yesterday.
It's right next to Import.
The dog has consistently gotten loose and has chased the postman away. And the postman made a report, and the U.S. Postal Service came back and said, you no longer have to deliver the mail until the situation is taken care of. They have contacted not the authorities, but your local
The dog catcher.
your local dog catcher, your local facility. They have contacted them, reached out to them to basically say, we have a problem. You need to come fix it. It is yet to be fixed. And so people have not received their mail for almost a month now.
And you think of, PP&L bills, you think of all the credit card bills where they're paying interest, I'm guessing that a group of these people put a hold on and go to the post office now and pick up their mail. I'm sure the whole street they have to.
They must. So the U.S. Postal Service spokesperson actually came out. Their quote is, "Mail for this neighborhood has been temporarily curtailed due to the presence of a loose, aggressive dog. The safety of our carriers and customers is a priority, and we are working with the local dog warden to remedy this situation." So that is the official statement from the U.S. Postal Service. Let's real quick. If you're at the head of the U.S. Postal Service, how do you get this call? Like, are you sitting in your offices and like all of a sudden you get a call about a dog in Westmoreland County, Pennsylvania, and now you like have to act on it? Like, what is the chain?
How about the mail carrier, especially if it's a guy, because it's not really a manly thing to come back and say this dog's run me off, but depending on what kind of dog it is.
Oh, so my dad, I'll tell this story. I don't think he'll mind. He was a meter reader for a private electric company, so you're not the mailman, but you're walking onto the property, you're walking around the back of the house, and you're doing this, monthly, bi-monthly, like depending on the property. And so like dogs were no joke. I believe he had gotten bitten before by a dog that had come out of the house. And the dogs that he hated the most were not the bigger dogs. The dogs he hated the most were like the little yippers. Those were the ones that like you really had to watch out for. So it is a very real thing.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I can just be the guy like, nope, not doing it anymore. I'm not. I'm not going down the street. You could see he probably piles it at the end of the street. Like, here's your mail. Here it is.
Yeah.
I can just.
Well,
just imagine going back and like, I'm not doing it anymore.
See, this is the part, and the story doesn't cover this, and maybe it's because they didn't want to speak out. But the dog is owned. Like, this isn't a stray dog. Like, this dog is owned, and it gets loose from its residence, however you want to refer to it, and it gets loose and it goes after the mailman. If you're the like neighboring community and you haven't had your mail delivered for a month, how are you not having like an intervention?
Yeah, where's the peer pressure here?
Yeah, like how are you not having an intervention and I'm not even saying you have to be cruel, but like how are you not like, hey Johnny, like I haven't got my mail in a month. Like do you need a chain? Like, do you need a fence? Like, what do we got to do here? Like, how can I help? Like, what do we have to do so that this neighborhood can get our mail again? That's the part of it that is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
You don't think so?
I mean, I do. I have a story to tell, but I don't want to tell it.
You don't want to tell it? That's all right. You don't have to. This is the other one, Florida man.
Oh, I did want to mention this, by the way, while we're on dog.
Okay.
I'm fascinated by Dog the Bounty Hunter all of a sudden again.
We were talking about this yesterday.
Apparently, he's going to find this laundry kit.
Apparently.
Nobody else can. One of my friends posted on Facebook. I don't know if he came up with this himself or stole it from somewhere else, but either way, whoever the originator of this was very funny.
Yeah.
He said, if this laundry kid, who I can't believe is genius, has escaped, what does he say? Federal, state, and local authorities, but Dog the Bounty Hunter finds him in like 3 days of work, I'm never paying taxes again. And there's a lot of truth to that.
It's pretty great. I said the two things that I said to you, he probably just does whatever he wants.
Dog?
Yeah. Like
Dog, I can imagine.
He probably doesn't have to go cut through, blue tape and like he probably just
It's red tape.
Is it red tape?
It's red tape.
But if it's the police, it's blue tape.
Is it? So what you're saying is you don't think Dog always goes and gets the proper warrants and knocks 3 times and sends a warning text or whatever. You think he just shows up and kicks doors in?
That's my opinion. Yes, I don't know him personally.
And maybe that's why he's good at his job.
It could be. And then the second thing,
what do they say? It's easier to ask forgiveness than permission.
That's true.
You mean I couldn't just break in?
I didn't know.
What state? What are the laws in this state?
Do you remember the Seinfeld episode where George is getting yelled at by his boss and he goes, "You mean I'm not allowed to do that?" You don't remember that one? That's a good one. Anyway, the second thing I said to you about Dog was, I just think there's this aspect where like he's just willing to do things other people aren't. And so what I mean by that is like, if you're if you're like a policeman or you're out searching for this dude in this thickness, like, what are the odds you're trudging through the swamp? Like, what are the odds you're gonna put yourself in like gator and snake infested everything? And like, I would guess there's a world where dogs just like, screw it. Like, I'll do it. Like, I'm walking through, like, I'll find. So like, I do think in a weird way, someone like him has I don't want to make it sound like a competition, but he does have a competitive advantage to finding this person over the police.
So you're saying like there are some people that are willing to chase the bad guy down a dark alley by themselves, and some people aren't.
Yes.
And dog he'll chase him.
I believe that.
There's probably a lot of truth to that.
Yeah. It's kind of like the adage, like, it's always easier to have change outside of the house than it is inside. Like, because you're just not restricted by these boundaries, and like you just kind of do. I've always said, like, when you watch these detective shows and stuff like that, and people go like, well, that can't possibly happen, or that can't be real. The one thing when you watch some of this stuff is like, they're allowed to follow their intuition, like, because it's just them. Like, they're not afraid of like going back to the station and sounding stupid because they had a hunch and but if you're like dog or like a private or anything else, like, you're just following your gut. Like, you're just doing the thing that you think could lead you down the path. Whereas everybody else has to follow these regulations, and there could be embarrassment if you're wrong. And so I don't know. Like, I think someone like him in a weird way would have a better chance of finding him. I do.
And when we watch the movies, you love the cops and the detectives and stuff who are willing to blur the lines between what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do.
Sure.
Because at least in the movies, they make it seem like, well, the obvious thing to do is not allowed.
Yeah.
But then we cheer him on when he does it anyway.
Yeah, that's the way it goes.
So, dog, he may be.
Florida man traps a gator in a trash bin. This went viral yesterday. This would have been more convenient to talk about yesterday. I'm sure at this point everybody has seen the video of a Florida man trapping, I guess you call it a bin. It has the wheels on the back end, the handle, trapping a gator, and not a small gator.
This guy is like the great American badass of the week. There's no doubt about it.
Without a doubt.
And he is unafraid.
Oh, yes. This is the first part. Do you know about the Florida man? It's not a theory, but do you know about Florida man? The most dangerous person in the world is Florida man. Because whenever you open up the newspaper, Florida man has done something.
What?
So like Florida man robs Burger King with axe. Florida man captures gator in trash bin. Florida man is the most dangerous person on the planet. Now it's multiple people, right?
I get that. I've never heard that.
So the running joke is Florida man's at it again. Florida man's done this. So I've always enjoyed that aspect of like the most dangerous person ever is Florida man.
Well, the most dangerous person ever might be John Wick, but
second is Florida man. The other part about this, if you watch him, like, it's not a small gator. If you haven't seen the video yet, go to Twitter, go wherever you can find it. It takes almost all his energy and effort to basically pull up the bin and like flip the gator up into it and close.
When you first showed it to me.
Yes.
And it's only a minute long?
It's not long.
Minute and a half?
Yeah.
When you first showed it to me, I thought, because this is not a little, I'm going to say the guy's 30.
Yeah. It's an adult.
And he is not a little wimpy guy.
No.
Like, you can tell this is a man's man.
Yeah.
I thought the gator was going to come after him and the guy was going to go run away screaming.
Okay.
And it was going to be one of these things like, this is why you don't try to catch an alligator with a trash can.
Right.
But then he did catch an alligator with a trash can.
Yeah.
And just the composure that he just seems calm and cool, like he does this every day.
Do you think living in Florida now, like, I bet I've said this before. I played basketball with kids from Puerto Rico and they had never seen a deer before.
Okay.
And so when they came to Syracuse and they saw a deer, they freaked out. Like, they were like scared to death of a deer. So the point I'm making is, I'm not saying that people in Florida aren't worried about gators, but there has to be this aspect of like, if you're seeing them weekly, daily, I mean, maybe it just gets to the point where like, it's just another gator and like, I'm going to take care of it. I don't know. That's the only explanation I have for it.
There has to be some familiarity to it.
Yes.
I can't imagine being scared of a deer, but
yes. But I'm saying,
But I
like
get
in
the point.
Pennsylvania, like when I see a black bear, I'm not like my first immediate thought isn't terror. Like my first
That's
immediate
because
thought
you
is
are
like,
so tough.
but I'm just saying, like my first immediate thought is like, oh, awesome, like a black bear, and I'm like watching it. Like my first thought isn't like, oh, like I. So I don't know. I maybe Florida has just gotten to the point where like, it's just
Yeah, I
another
mean, I'm sure if
alligator.
you're around them, you see how, aggressive they are or aren't. I mean, in golf courses, there'll be signs like "Don't go look for your ball near the pond."
Yeah.
But I'm sure people play, golfers in Florida see gators all the time.
Right.
So,
The man is 26 years old. His name is
he's
Eugene
26. Okay.
Eugene Bozzi or Bozy. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. And he has a quote that if I can find it again, I'll read it. He describes how he captured it. I used the front like a hippo mouth is how he described it to authorities as after he had caught the gator. So he used the front like a hippo mouth. And if you watch the video, he does. He puts it right down. The gator is kind of coaxed into going in the side. It's pretty fascinating. I mean, it's one thing to watch somebody catch, like a giant fish or a snake, but to catch like it's a
with a
5
trash
foot, 6 foot
can.
gator.
He doesn't catch it with like a net that they drop from a helicopter, and he caught it in his driveway with a trash can.
And it's not Steve Irwin, and he's got like his dungarees on, and
he's got in shorts and a t-shirt.
I don't even know if he has shoes.
I was just going to say that he might have been barefoot.
he might be.
Well, the gator was barefoot, so that's only fair.
That's only fair. So if you haven't had a chance, go check out the video. It's pretty neat. I enjoyed watching. It was definitely better than what I thought it was going to be when I first clicked on it, for sure.
Yes, this guy, he reminds you that real men still exist.
All right, good to be back. That was yesterday we could not figure out the connection. I was plugged in and everything. I would like to state that for the record. But I don't know, good to be back. I was bummed because I thought we had a pretty good show yesterday.
I thought so too, and I took down my Cowboy stuff because I don't want to be obnoxious forever.
I get it.
But Jerry's a Carolina fan, and that's who we play this week. And if we win, there's a chance it'll be back up Monday.
Okay.
The obnoxiousness may continue.
No, makes sense.
The Phillies have not done well since last we spoke.
Braves are in the playoffs.
They have kind of played their way out.
It's not clinched, but the Braves.
It's not mathematical. It could be tonight. Yeah. And the other one, there's another. I think Houston needs to win tonight. The American League wild card's fascinating. Okay. Seattle has got in there. There's 4 teams playing for 2 spots.
Yes.
The Yankees with a huge one with Toronto tonight. So the American League wild card will be fun right up through the weekend, and then the playoffs start Tuesday. You don't know how excited I am.
I can kind of tell. You're not like super giddy, but I can tell this is one of your
baseball
favorite times
playoffs
of the year.
October is so great.
Yeah.
Because football is kind of. I think in football you've figured out a little bit. Someone could win week 1, and you're like, oh, or some like the Bills stunk week 1.
October football, no one's out yet. That's to me. That's like you can still turn it around, or you're 3-0 and you didn't think you'd be 3-0. Like October football is great,
but you have a big enough sample size, even in college. Yeah, because they'll be like, oh, this team hasn't given up a rushing touchdown. You're like, well, who have they played? They played. So you've got a big enough sample size to have a clue, but there's still enough left to have anticipation. And then baseball. The thing about baseball playoffs, and I tell people this, the baseball playoffs, the crowd is like a football game. Yeah. They're in it with every pitch. If you ever get a chance to go to a baseball playoff game, it is so much different than going on a Sunday afternoon in July. Yeah, it is. They're into it. Like the first inning, 2-2, and people are into it. And especially with these wild card rounds that are, one and done. For the blue bloods of baseball, the National League wild card is probably going to be the Dodgers and the Cardinals, who may be the 2 most historic teams in the National League. In the American League, it looks like it's going to be the Yankees and the Red Sox. At least that's how it would be today. So Cardinals, Dodgers for 1 game, Yankees, Red Sox for 1 game. For the old-time baseball fans, this is heaven. It doesn't get any better than that.
I'm happy for them because I just blacked out on you like 30 seconds ago. Joe Garrison, Florida man shops at grocery store for anniversary gifts, survives even at home. Pretty good. So this is like the running gag.
Wait, what?
Florida man shops at grocery store for anniversary gifts, survives even at home. That's like the gag, like the idea of like Florida man, and then you can make ironic statements around it as well. So like he picked up his anniversary gift at the grocery store, which essentially means like it's not going to be a diamond if you get the drift, and then survived even when he made it home. You don't get it?
Oh, I get it. So he got a cheap anniversary gift, and then his wife didn't kill him.
Yes.
Thank you. It took me about 2 minutes to figure that out.
I noticed.
Joe's way above me intellectually.
You don't find the Florida man thing as funny as I thought?
I never heard of it before. I mean,
So
I get
just,
it now.
is it
And
just,
now I'm going to keep my eyes open for it.
Because it does. I mean, every day you open up the news, there's Florida man did something. And they never like, and this is the funny part. It's never like teenager or the profession or like it's just Florida man every single time. Like it didn't say like college student traps Florida man, like traps gator in trash bin.
Because he's probably not a college student.
But you're missing.
No, but I do get, I get it. I get it.
I hear you.
I get it.
Okay.
We'll just leave it at that. But I didn't get this one at first, but now I do.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Anything else before we head out? It can be anything but baseball.
Why?
Because we're going to talk about baseball a lot in
say
October.
that?
I can
Why
tell
would you
already.
say that?
Because we're going to talk about baseball a lot in October. Listen, the NBA is starting up, and I haven't brought it up once because I know as the season goes on, there's going to be
because the NBA doesn't matter till April.
I'll tell you.
And even the first round of the playoffs don't matter.
Did you see media come out? They asked a lot of COVID questions at the NBA media days, and there's way more people unvaccinated in the NBA than what. And the other part of it too is they're finding out that a lot of these guys just got their first shot within like the last week because teams are coming out and saying like you got like if you don't do this like you're not going to be able to play.
As COVID kind of dominated the world for however long, the are you vaccinated or unvaccinated is going to dominate the news for a while.
You think so?
I do. Because there's going to be lawsuits, there's going to be, there's going to be companies that don't allow it, there's going to be companies that do allow it, there's going to be companies that mandate it, and then there's I think it's not gone.
I think
because and I'm sorry to cut you off, because the people that are not getting it they're not wavering. They're not. If you haven't got it by now, you don't want it, you're not getting it.
For the most part, I agree with that sentiment. Like if you have not gotten it by now, you either have your reasons or you have convinced yourself you don't like. Yes, it's going to be hard to persuade people. What's neat about the NBA thing happening right now is there's this aspect of like, especially in basketball, team. So most people that have made it to the NBA, especially like maybe this wasn't true 20 years ago, like it was more of a selfish league and isolate all that. But the NBA now, like if you're a jerk, most of you don't stick around very long. Like most of the people in the NBA now understand teamwork.
Which is why you're not in the NBA.
To a degree, correct. And so there's this idea of the people that have come out. There's been really intelligent statements made. Jonathan Isaac for the Magic made a really intelligent statement on why he's not vaccinated. And the only thing really missing from the statement was the idea of protecting the people around him. That was like everything else that he said made a ton of sense. He's like, I'm young and I'm healthy. He goes, I've already had it, so I have the antibodies. He's like, I have the best healthcare professionals around me every day because I'm a professional athlete. So he goes, for that reason, he goes, I have deemed and the people around me have deemed that like I will probably survive if I get it, and I'm choosing. It was a very intelligent statement for someone who doesn't want to get vaccinated. The little part he left out was the idea of what about the people around you, and that's so. In that scenario where you're an NBA player and you're around your team and you're around those people, it's weird to hear somebody talk that intelligent about it, but kind of skip over the part of like your teammates and your family and everything else. So I found the whole NBA media COVID thing. So maybe you are right. Like maybe we're going to find all these little other crevices of society to talk about this stuff and how it matters. Because I'm sure going into NBA Media Day, that is not what people thought the number one thing coming out of it would be. And it was.
I agree. Okay. All right, that's all I got.
Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Thank you to all of our sponsors. And be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all your local news. I think this afternoon we have an asset coming out about the Joe Biden Expressway in Scranton. So look for that this afternoon. I'm not going to click on the comments, but I'm sure other people will. So you can go and check that out at NorthcentralPA.com.
No, you're lying.
I'm not.
The comments are going to be, there's going to be a lot of meat on that bone in the comments.
Probably. So be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com.
And let's be honest, you're leaving here and driving straight over to the Joe Biden Expressway.
To the Joe Biden Expressway. I was trying to picture, because I was trying to picture where it would be exactly, because we go there for like basketball tournaments and different things. So I think I know where it's going to be. There was in I want to say the WNEP article, I was reading to you one of the quotes. And there are people that are saying they're not going to change their, like business owners are saying they're not going to change their address. Scranton has come and said they have a year to do so. So that's kind of like a little tidbit off to the side that'll be fascinating to see how it plays out. Interesting. Yeah. So you can find that at NorthcentralPa.com.
And imagine this. Now, this is off on another stupid tangent, but so, and I understand why Scranton did it. You know, he was born there. He's the president of the United States.
Yes.
I get it.
Yeah.
If you have a business, if it's your home address, it's not that big of a deal, because it's like when you have the little return labels up in the corner that you use on Christmas cards, like, because who even does real mail that much anymore? But if you're a business and all your stuff and your incorporation papers, and if you have to go change the address on all your official documentation, plus you know that there are right-wing extremists who are not going to come to your store because they won't drive on Joe Biden, Expressway?
Sure.
So there are some people that there are businesses that are going to lose business. Now, maybe it's 2 customers, but there's like...
Well, so to your point, if I'm a business owner on that road, regardless of left, right, I just don't want it to be polarizing.
Correct.
I don't want it to be President Biden Expressway. I don't want it to be President Trump Expressway. The whole idea of it is like, I just don't want to deter 50% of the country from coming to my business.
As Michael Jordan said, Republicans buy sneakers too.
Yeah.
Like, you've kind of been unwittingly put into the polarization.
It's a very good point.
It wasn't it Spruce Street? Isn't that what you said?
Spruce Street was the original street.
I'm sure a lot of them. Now, and don't get me wrong, there's probably, dyed-in-the-wool Democrats that are there that are honored to be on Joe Biden Expressway, because he's from Scranton, he's a Democrat, he's president.
Yes.
But I'm sure there are businesses they're thinking about the hassle, just the paperwork hassle, and the bottom line. Yeah. And if depending on what kind of business you're in, you lose 1 customer. Yeah.
No, it's a very good point. I hadn't taken it to the perspective of like business, and so it's a very, very good point. I don't know if I mentioned this to you. 95% of Harvard students and staff have been vaccinated online to all having breakthrough cases. The vax doesn't stop transmission. So this is the main story that Sherry Lee is talking about. Harvard Business School had to basically go online. They're remote now. And they were one of the only programs, organizations, institutions, pick the title you want to pick. They were one of the only ones that had a 100% vaccination rate. Everybody within the School of Business was vaccinated. However, they had to go to remote because of breakthrough cases. This is the one thing that I think gets kind of like missed, and I am not a doctor. Please do your own research. I think one of the things, as far as I've said before, I'm very pro freedom of choice on this. It's probably one of the things that I disagree most with kind of the office and people around me. I don't so much have an issue with it. The one thing I will say is just because you are vaccinated, though, you can still pass it. There is still transmission, but the vaccine's going to have less symptoms. So you may get COVID, but your symptoms are going to be weakened. Your symptoms are going to be less likely. You're less likely to be hospitalized, all those things. Thus, in turn, you are less likely to transmit it. It doesn't mean you still can't, but if you're coughing less, right? If your symptoms are 3 days instead of 5, you are going to be less likely to transmit it, even though, as we found out at Harvard Business School, it can still be transmitted.
And I think from the naysayer side, they're like, well, how much less? How much less contagious?
And it's a fair
and how
question.
Much? And nobody.
It's
like, you can't get a good answer because it's such a So it is a fair question. But yes, I agree. And that's one of the first things I read when I was reading about breakthroughs. Yeah. So what's the use of being vaccinated? Well, according to studies, less severe symptoms,
Yes.
and a smaller window of incubation transmission period.
Yes.
Well, how much smaller, how much less is what these people are asking.
I actually, I'm glad Sherry Lee brought it up, because I think Harvard Business School, and I don't know how they were doing it before they went online, right? Like, I don't know how many people were in a classroom, how they were living. Like, I don't know the details or the specifics of it. But when you look at how breakthrough transmission would happen, in my head, I picture a classroom. I picture a dorm, right? Like those are the places where like you have to be around people consistently enough and confined close enough to them where even though your window of transmission has lessened, even though your symptoms have lessened, you're still able to transmit it. So like, I'm not surprised at all that a school, and again, maybe that's not how they were, right? Like maybe that's not how Harvard Business School is doing it. But it did not surprise me that a school was somewhere where you would have breakthrough cases. That doesn't surprise me at all.
I'll bet I know someone who's not vaccinated. Dog the bounty hunter.
I bet you Dog the Bounty Hunter is not. I bet you he is not
That's what I said.
But again, you don't, I mean, that is, you talk about how it's going to continue and be like in the lexicon of our conversations. One of the fascinating things is going to be like, you know how you used to not say who you voted for? Like it was very taboo. And now like, I can almost, I bet you if I went through family and friends, I can tell you who they voted for.
Well, that's because you don't have that many friends.
Vaccinated or unvaccinated is going to be one of those things where I think early on, like it was kind of like on social media, people show their, but in your normal day-to-day life, it was not your first question, your second question. It wasn't something you thought about when you met somebody. As we move on, it's going to be interesting, like how that kind of breaks in, because I am always stunned. There are people that are vaccinated and I'm like, really? And there are people who are unvaccinated and I'm like, really? Like it's, so that aspect of society is going to be very interesting too.
No, I don't disagree with that either.
Yeah.
I know someone, I shouldn't say the most, one of, if you ask me who are the most liberal people you know, this person is one of the top three. Unvaxxed isn't getting it.
No.
And you just make these assumptions.
Yeah.
But I know people that are very, very right that got in line quickly.
The below 30 age is fascinating to me because there's this aspect of if I've had COVID and I have the antibodies and I'm young and I'm healthy and the science still shows that I am very unlikely to have to be hospitalized. It's almost like you're trying to get them to buy pertain to them. And the irony, you're back, you're here.
I can't see me.
And the irony of that is, think of all the other aspects. Like you think of the system that's been built and everything else. And there's a lot of aspects where like people below 30 don't feel like they've been a part of the team. And now they're, you understand what I'm saying?
Because the old people never want the young people on the team.
And now all of a sudden, like if you're Jonathan Isaac for the Orlando Magic, everybody kind of, there's a lot of other people are saying like, hey, like let's go do this for the team. And yet he's probably looking up and saying like, well, there's a lot of things right now in society where like I am not a part of the team.
Yeah. You didn't want me on the team last week.
So I don't know. The whole thing's very, very fascinating. Anything else before we go?
I think I'm gone. Can you see me?
Yeah, you're on.
Oh, my screen says something went wrong. Please ensure you're connected and let us.
We're just trying to get rid of you.
Oh, well, it looks like you did.
You want me to sign off?
So wait, since I'm not here, can I give the Eli Manning double bird?
Say that again?
The Eli Manning double bird.
The Eli Manning double bird that I gave to you yesterday?
Because I'm not on. Did you give it on the? Oh, we weren't on yesterday. You had me for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I'm here anymore. But yeah, it was a good show. Good. Glad I'm not even here.
Okay. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show.
My screen is blank.
If you're not on, be quiet so I can end the show.
Sure.
It's got to be one or the other. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. And be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com. There, you just got booted now. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all your local news. I am Jeff Everett. He was Mark Messina. We will be back tomorrow for a Friday show.